DraftKings NBA Live Final, and our team crushed, placing 4 teams in the top 10. The RunPure logo was popping in the leaderboard. RunPure members and employees were arm in arm on this year's leaderboard. JSU led the group with 2 top 10 lineups, finishing in both 6th and 9th place, hauling in over $225K. BigT took 10th place for $67K. RunPure member and contributor Record 62 rounded out the top 10, finishing in 8th place for $100K. Congrats to RPS member Eden Cohen for also taking home over $17K in the tournament. Our NBA team has been on fire, and you can catch them for free over on our YouTube channel. Just make sure you head on over, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss when they go live. And you can check out BigT and Stevie on our free NCAA show Thursday through Sunday morning every day this week. Also, sign up today for a premium subscription to RunPureSports and take advantage of our promo for a limited time only. Use the promo code PLAYERS33. You can knock 33% off your first payment on a RunPure subscription. That includes Sabersim plans to take advantage of this great deal to access premium videos, core plays, and projections from the top DFS players in the industry. Thanks again, guys, and make sure you head on over to RunPureSports today and take advantage of our great promo before it expires. Find out why all of our members are crushing NBA and PGA by accessing our premium content.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sabersim and RunPureSports Thursday show. Always joined by Jordan. I'm here today. AP's on vacation. Love doing these shows, and I'm very excited about today because we're talking MMA, which all you guys probably know. I love MMA. Playbook will be up tomorrow as always. MMA show at 2 p.m. Eastern. And last week, I just came out with the MMA Sims on Friday. Will did it, right? Will's the name, Jordan?
Yep, that's right.
Will made these Sims on Friday, and he goes out and ships Saturday. Solo ships the top with the new MMA Sim. So I'm very excited to learn from Jordan, see what they got cooking up. And if you guys have any other questions, doesn't have to be MMA, any other Sabersim questions in general, you can put them in the YouTube chat. You can put them in the live show chat. We'll get to them and we'll answer it too. But Jordan's always here. We appreciate it. Before I get to Jordan, though, hit that like button as always. Hit that big red subscribe button right to the bottom right. And we have a lot of content going as always. Obviously, March Madness getting kicked off. We're having March Madness shows every single day at 10 a.m. Eastern. Today we had one, Steve, Holden, BigT. Tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. So make sure you check out those shows. Very good knowledge over there. Jordan, I'll head over to you, though. Very excited about today, obviously, with the MMA. I'm excited for you to dive into the process, see what you guys built. And obviously, it's a very successful product after we saw Will do. So go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, pretty much the best case scenario there, coming out with the new Sims on Friday and then taking the big one down on Saturday. So we were all super excited for Will. So yeah, I mean, these came out on Friday. We've had some partial MMA support on the app before. I'm sure some of you guys that maybe have already been building MMA lineups with Sabersim know that this is kind of a big update to that, even though, visually at first glance, it doesn't really maybe look that way. So we are now doing full fight simulations for all of these fights here. There's a lot more data on step 1 when you first pull up the app. So before you were kind of just looking at projection, ownership, we've got a lot more here now. We've got the percentiles for each fighter, the 25th through the 99th percentiles, and then a bunch of data here that comes from our simulation. So all important detailed projections for MMA, the win percent, quick win percent, but also strikes data, percent chance of different finishes, etc. But really where I think this gets really cool and starts to kind of show where the value is here is when you start to click into a fighter now, you can see the different distributions we're talking about for each fighter.
I like that.
Yeah, so really cool. There'll typically be this, Will told me this is called a multimodal distribution here, kind of technical, but really what it means, and it makes sense, it's most of these fighters, especially a guy that has around a 50% chance to win the fight, you'll have the lose by decision outcomes here, or excuse me, the lose inside the distance here, the lose by decision, the win by decision, and then the winning inside the distance here. as kind of their main distributions here. So Title and I were talking about here before we went live, obviously a very high variance sport, right? Average projections are going to be pretty useless. And if you're using like a traditional optimizer and trying to build good MMA lineups, it's really, really hard. You've got to set a lot of rules, or you've got to do kind of a lot of really tough work with the way you're setting your exposures and things like that. Just like for our other sports, now that we've got simulations live here for MMA, when you go in to build your lineups, you go in here, sim variance at 10, we're going to use a single fight sim for every fight on the card, and then build the optimal lineup for that particular simulation. So it makes it really easy to just build a big pool of viable lineups that are optimal, at least for a certain way that the card can play out. And then you come in behind that and use Title's playbook or the core plays and all the RunPure content to help kind of strategize and figure out what you want to do. But you don't have to spend time figuring out, are my lineup constructions good? We're doing that part for you, and you come in with the strategy behind it. So just super excited about this. I'm just getting into MMA here. Definitely a sport I'm a little bit new to. Pretty excited to start playing around with these sims a little bit more. But I did want to mention that after this show here on the RunPure side of things, I will actually be going live on the Sabersim YouTube with Will to talk a little bit more in detail on kind of the more technical side about what's going into these sims here. If you're interested, anybody watching this wants to come join me on the next stream as well, we'll be having Will on and doing kind of an interview Q&A there. So super excited about that.
Yeah, definitely make sure to go check that out. I mean, Will builds this, so Jordan knows a lot about it. Will probably obviously knows probably even a little more in depth, but he put it to work right away. I mean, it came out Friday, puts it out, wins 100K. So definitely make sure to check that out. And like Jordan said, MMA is the most variant sport. When you look at projections, it's not like NBA. It's very projection based. You know how many minutes this guy's out, this guy gets a usage bump, blah, blah, blah. And MLB, yeah, it's not nearly as much projections. You can go 0 for 4, be Mike Trout, and it's not a surprise at all. MMA, the projections are based on the odds. So like if you're minus 300, you're projected to win. The other guy is a plus 250 dog, it's going to be lower, but you need to win in MMA to be optimal 99% of the time. So I love like that step one. It has the knockdowns, the takedowns, all that stuff in the playbook. Obviously, I talk about that. I have GPP tags, fade tags, stuff like that. So in step one, if you follow the playbook and you want to like fade who I say to fade, you can go and check those boxes right away. And then that'll make step 2 and step 3, the lineups that you want to see right away. You build a 1500, you won't get any of the guys that you unclick that are fades. And then you'll have the sims do the work for you that you know that you want to see in the player pool. So I think that's very good for sure. Before we get into it quick, I do see a question in the YouTube chat. It's from, his name's Not Sure. He said, I hear a lot of people asking if they can make conditional groups. If this player from one game in lineup plays someone from the other team. So he's talking about groups that you can make. I know you guys are kind of working on that, but he's like asking for another way to kind of get around it. Would bumping the correlation slider accomplish some of that rule, Jordan? It's not for an MMA specifically because you don't really make groups like that, but just saying MLB. If you have bump your correlation all the way to 10, are you going to get more 4-4 stacks or more stacks with certain teams? League of Legends is another one, stuff like that. Is that a way to kind of get the correlation and just 4-4s, or an NFL quarterback, wide receiver, stuff like that? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that's like a fantastic way to go about it. If you crank it all the way to 10, you're probably just going to get 100% 4-4s on FanDuel and 100% 5-3s on DraftKings for baseball at the very least. Same thing with league. If you bump it all the way up to 10, it's going to be 4-3s every single lineup, probably literally 100% of your lineups in your pool. For a sport that maybe the correlation is a little bit lower, like NBA, I don't know maybe what sport what the question was for here, but for NBA.
Yeah, he didn't say anything. I was assuming League of Legends, MLB, because like that's the correlation sport. But yeah, for NBA, I'll let you talk about, but you do not need to bump correlation to 10.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I do think if you really want to try to get some of these game stacks or to emphasize correlation a little bit more, I think you can justify increasing the slider a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, a lot of times these game stacks, this kind of thinking comes from like on traditional optimizers that don't already take into account correlation. There's not really any other tool to deal with correlation well, other than setting these stacking rules. So I actually think on a sport like NBA, if you want to say, I want to value correlation a little bit more than by default. I actually think it is the best idea to increase the slider instead of setting like a rule of thumb rule, just because then it's gonna handle that a little bit more in a sophisticated way. It's actually going to use the real average correlations from the sims and go that route. Like we can see here. So this is, I've got Giannis's distributions. This is pulled up from yesterday, since we only have one probably terrible game of NBA on the slate here tonight. And you can see, so Giannis has like some very slight positive correlations with the players on the King side. He's got some negative correlations to his other stars, right? Like these correlations kind of make sense for what we would expect, but they're not very big correlations. In football, like we'll have a QB correlated to a wide receiver. This number will be like 0.4% or 0.4, right? There's a huge correlation between Mahomes and Tyreek Hill or something like that. In basketball, the correlations are all there. They're all just a lot smaller. So I think instead of like setting that rule and saying, I want 100% of this in all my lineups, just pumping up the correlation slider a little bit, saying, take it, like look into this a little bit more, right? I want to factor correlation in a little bit more, but the values are still small enough that you don't need to go like all in with a stackable. That's how I'd probably go about it. I will say
you guys built your model. Like all of that's a lot taken into consideration. It's not going to give you a negative EV like spot in your sims. Like that's already accounted for a little bit. So you bump that up a little bit, but if right away, like you guys recommend because it's all back tested and stuff, not to change the sliders too much. So if the correlations is sitting at 2 right now, bumping it to 10 is going to change the whole model and how it's built. So you'd recommend maybe bump it to 4 or 5 if you really want to be aggressive with it. But bumping like 2 to 10 or stuff like that it's kind of out there for like you guys. Like Sabersim already built and back tested all of these numbers for all these certain contests, whether it's single entry, satellites, 1,500 people in it, 200,000 people in the tournament. All that's already accounted for. So the more you mess with the sliders, the more you're getting away from what you guys already believe in and back tested. So going from a correlation of 2 to 10, if that's what you're doing, it is a little out there is how I approach it and how I think of it. And I think that's how you're pretty much saying, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. They are back tested. They've been optimized for the particular contest that you tell us you're playing. I typically say, if you want to make some adjustments, start with something like 1 or 2 adjustments in either direction, like 1 or 2 notches max, and just see what the impact of that is. You are going to get some pretty extreme results if you start changing these to like 0 or 10 or going crazy on any of the sliders. With that said, it's a really good way to learn what these are doing. I definitely recommend when you have some time, maybe you got an afternoon, you don't have a whole lot going on. Lock is 3 hours away. You're not trying to get lineups in before lock. I do recommend experimenting with the sliders, build some lineups on some more extreme settings, see what correlation at 10 for an NBA build does. And I think it will help make you a little bit more familiar with what these are actually doing. It'll make you, if you know what correlation 10 does, it'll be easier to understand the jump from 5 to 7, for example. So I do think that's a good way to experiment, but otherwise,
I think that's very sharp, not to interrupt, but I think that's very sharp in every sport. It's like hours before a lock, obviously, because you can't be doing NBA, especially like you can't be messing with different things and experimenting 45 minutes before lock, but the projections are always up there on Sabersim, RunPureSports, stuff like that. Check it way before. MLB, same thing. All the sports. Check it, get a feel for it, get a process with that, and then you'll be ready and you'll have a certain process when news hits and you know how to adjust. So I think that was a very sharp point you just made.
Yeah, and one other thing I was just going to mention here. So, let's just assume hypothetically, especially maybe for the user that asked this question, I hear you guys, I get it all, I understand what you're saying, but I still want to make sure that I always have 2 kings next to every time I have Giannis. I don't know if anybody can hear that. I think they're doing fire alarm testing at my condo here today.
You're good.
Not too bad. Okay,
you're
cool.
Good.
So anyway, so what we can do, we can use the filters tool here in step 3 and basically force that in. So we can't do a conditional group before the build, but we can do one after. So if we say filter by Giannis, show me all of my Giannis lineups here, and then go to teams. And then we can go ahead and basically say, I'm going to trash every Giannis lineup that doesn't have, actually, we don't even have a king stack in here. So this example is not going to be so good. I guess, okay, never mind. This didn't work so good. I guess what we need here, let's just say, I guess hypothetically, I'll use a different example. Let me pick a different player here.
Well, so in that situation, if you went back to step one and bumped, like just say you knew you wanted a Sabonis, you knew you wanted some more Fox, so you set the min exposure there. Would that kind of then go, because you were going the right path? You hit the plus sign on the Giannis, and would that then make sure like you have the Kings, more of the Kings in your builds, and then you can go that way?
That would be a good way to do it. Yeah. And it's just, I just don't have any king stacks in this particular set with Giannis. So that wasn't working, but we could do, another example would be like maybe someone like DeJounte Murray. I know we're getting some OKC guys here. So we could say, take all the DeJounte Murray lineups, the ones that don't have an OKC stack. And now I'm just going to trash all of these. So it's going to say there's 59 DeJounte Murray lineups that don't have any, or not Kings, sorry, Thunder stacks.
Yep.
And now we're going to trash those. And now what that means is we have left, let's go back over here. And we can look, and all of our DeJounte Murray lineups would have a Thunder stack. So kind of a little around the back there, I guess, of a way to do that. It is our plan in the future to add more conditional groups so that you can kind of do exactly what we're trying to do here. But again, I do think leaning on the simulations, letting that correlation slider get some more of that in there naturally is probably the best practice. So
yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I'm glad you went into depth. Like there is a way to do it. You have to do a little more steps. Mm-hmm. You guys are working on it, but not sure. Hopefully that did answer your question. If you have any other questions, obviously drop it in. But yeah, very good answer to that. And it definitely makes sense. But let's go back to those MMA sims. I'm very excited to hear what you got to say about it, because it obviously works. MMA is a sport. If you're not familiar with MMA, so pretty much the big thing, you don't stack fights, or you very, very rarely. If you do, it's a 5-round main event. You think no dogs are going to win. Mm-hmm. I pretty much never do it. I don't think I've ever recommended it. So besides that, though, every single fight, so like just say there's 13 fights. That's what's going on tomorrow. Maybe 12. We'll see how it goes. But they're all each one is independent to itself. The first fight means nothing to the 12th fight, to the 10th fight, and stuff like that. So like if you have the first 6 fights and they both all get 100 plus, like you're sitting pretty. It doesn't matter any of the other fights. So you just don't stack, which Sabersim, they're not going to give you stacks. You can talk about that too. But other than that, I mean, like the projections mean nothing. They can be projected for 35 because they're plus 500. It's MMA. You connect in the first round, someone gets knocked out, you're going to score 120. So projections don't mean anything. So I'm excited you to talk about how the sims work, because it's not a projection sport. You can be projected 200 points less than the optimal cash lineup, and that means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's going on here, and I think it's important to note here, is that we don't even use the average projections when we're building an actual lineup here. What actually happens, so this sim variance slider, just like other sports, right? It's going to control how many sims we're looking at for every individual lineup. At 10, the max value, it's a single sim. So, I mean, we could say, any of these guys, they have their average projections. That's the average across all of their sims. That's what everybody else is basically going to be using. But we click into one of these guys, and what actually happens is every time we build a lineup, we're going to pick a random sim here from what's in the range of outcomes for these guys. And you can see, right, like right here, here's a great example, right? Gunnar Nelson, 76.03, not one of the like elite, maybe the top projected guys, but we pull up the range of outcomes here, and we've got all of these, high scoring outcomes here right at the top. But they're not all the outcomes, right? There's situations where he loses the fight. There's situations where, maybe even gets knocked out, really loses the fight, right? So the rates at which these events actually happen in the simulations will reflect how often you are getting these guys in your lineups when you actually go to build. And one of the biggest edges that this is going to give you in your lineups is you're going to be able to take advantage of really inefficient ownership in contests, because you have a better understanding of what the ranges of outcomes of each of these fighters look like. So honestly, on the MMA side, especially since, you mentioned we're not really doing a lot of stacking here. I don't think there's actually like a lot of work that you have to do at all here. I think you can be pretty successful coming in, using the default settings and building some lineups. Again, coming back through on the other side with that, with the playbook and some of the strategy from Title. But these lineups are going to look really pretty solid right out of the gate because we're using the full range of outcomes of each fighter. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow the playbook, obviously we have RunPureSports, Sabersim right now. We have a deal. Players 33 gets you 33 10% off your first month. And I always write my playbook, as most of you know, if you're watching this, if you play MMA, I write it for a 20 entry max because I believe, MMA, it's so volatile. There's so much variance. You single entry, you get 5 fights right. You're plus your minus 300 gets knocked out in the first round. Happens all the time. You can't take first place. Whereas if you have 20, I narrow down, you pick fades, you do all that stuff. If you X out all the fades, if you want to follow the playbook, or regardless, if you have your own strategy, you want to cross off certain ones. And then so in step one, in every sport, we talk about it, Jordan, where if you want to if you do not want any of this player, that player, the more things you do in step one, the more lineups you'll get that you'll like, obviously, with the 1,500 you build, because you're telling it what to do in step one. And all these lineups will be plus EV because it won't be stacked. And then MMA, especially, like, it's very easy to build like plus EV lineups. MMA, the big thing is you don't want to be duplicated because the prize pools are so heavy up top. You don't want to share it with 200 people. Obviously, how you do that in Sabersim right here, the range of outcomes does a very good job with that to get you more unique. You already have players you like because you kept them in your pool, and that's a perfect fit. So I love it. I talk about Sabersim in my playbook a lot. Right away, I'm like, first step I'm going to lock this guy. So then you already have to deal with 5 other things. And then Sabersim will help you with the other players that you like and the range of outcomes. Like, yeah, if you look at Ilya Topuria in the top guy right now, 9,300, he's projected for the most. If you click on that, Jordan, for his range of outcomes, I bet you there's some that's going to be like 5 points and stuff because anyone can get knocked out right away. And yeah, his projection's 87, but if he can score 2 points, it's one of the very few sports that you can score 2 points and like you wouldn't be like shocked. Yeah, it's not the projected range of outcome, obviously, but that's just part of MMA. 9,300 and minus 400 favorites, they lose, they get knocked out right away. So that's why this sim is very good and accounts for all of that. So I think you hit it really good.
Yeah, and we see right here, right? The best projected fighter on the slate projected for 88 points, only a 78% chance to win the fight, period, right? And we go back into this build we just ran here. If you were using a traditional tool and just building lineups that based on the average projections,
it would jam them.
It would jam him in every single lineup. It'd be almost impossible to get off of him unless you specifically set like a max exposure. But we see here, even just for a 20 lineup build, right? We're not all in on him, right? We're leaving a little bit of room for a situation where, maybe he loses the fight, maybe he wins the fight, but he's just not optimal. I'm curious if we have any of the guy he's fighting. I don't see any in here. But yeah, I was just going to look. One of the things that's kind of cool here is you'll even see like the builder will like have you take some. Go ahead.
If you made 150, I think you probably would have some, right? Like right now, do you have because you're showing 20 right now, which I'll tell you, like right now, my playbook, it's not out right now, but I have the other guy as a fade. Obviously he can still win. You have to fade some guys. And I think it could give you some, but it's a very risky play in 20 and 150. I imagine it would give you some though. So it all depends. Like the one that that's why in the step 2, when you talk about 20 entry max, 150 max, single entry, all that stuff, it's going to account for it. In single entry, it's probably not going to jam the biggest dog on the card. Maybe it would if the rest of your lineup is chalky and that's what differentiates it. But it's not going to jam like 5 underdogs and 1 stud in a single entry build because that's not plus EV.
Yeah, definitely not. And it looks like we have like 3% of Herbert here in a 150 max. But also, look, Topuria comes down to 47%, right? Like we're all of a sudden kind of taking a little bit of a stand here. And again, I think it's just the perfect example of leveraging against the ownership, looking at the full range of outcomes here, and building lineups that are built for upside here. So.
For sure. Not sure also had another question in chat, and this is a really good one because I'm mainly a cash player, so I actually don't know this answer, but I know there is a way, and Jordan, so I'll get this to you. Do you know how to judge how many unique entries you've entered into a contest after a lock? I know there's a process where you can do it. Do you know that process?
I don't know of a way that you could do that super easily. I think you'd end up having you'd need some kind of an Excel spreadsheet to do that, and then count if different lines of I think there's some other sites out there that maybe have some free tools to do that. I'd have to go digging a little bit. But
yeah,
we don't have anything like that at the moment, unfortunately.
no, I mean, I don't know the answer either. I know it's like an Excel, like there's a certain way you can do it on Excel. You have to know like the count is, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we don't know the answer. If we do, not sure. If I find the answer for you, I'll let you know. But yeah, I'm mainly a cash player, and I know there's a lot of steps to that. But yeah. As far as the MMA though, I mean, you definitely covered most of it. I'm excited to listen. I'm probably not going to listen right after because I'm the big T's right now, but I'm definitely going to listen to you and we'll talk about it with the Sims and what he has to say. And because he didn't max that tournament that he shipped. He had pretty
20.
few entries, 20 that shipped it. So I'm very interested to see what he says about it. What exactly did he just let the Sims do what the Sims do? Did he mess with some min-max ownership? Because I personally mess with the min-max ownership because I build the playbook for how I want. I know like a certain range of what I want, but sometimes I see Sabersim, they're very bullish on something or the range of outcomes that I'm like, ooh, but it takes the ownership into account. And your ownership projections, I was just looking at them. I think they're very sharp, and ownership is one of the most important things in MMA with how much variance there is, with how you want to be unique. You can't just jam all the chalk. I mean, there's some lineups that you look and they're duplicated 150 times. You do not want a lineup like that. That even if you ship, I don't care if you ship. That is a lineup that you never want to play. So Sabersim, you guys take that into account, and they don't. You guys aren't going to give a lineup like that. So I'm excited to hear what Will has to say about that specifically too, and what was his process for building those 20. So make sure you check that show out for sure. I don't see any questions in the live show chat. I'm not seeing any questions in the YouTube. Do you have anything else with this, Jordan?
No, I think the last thing I was just going to add is that, whether you are brand new to MMA and like going in and playing DFS for MMA the first time this weekend, or if you're an expert, there's so much value that can be added here, right? Like even just by default, you go in default settings, default projections, default ownership, you run a build, and maybe make a couple adjustments based on the playbook. You're going to be in a great spot again, because you have those Sims backing you up. If you're an expert and you're studying every single fight on the card and going in and you've got kind of your plays and fades that you want to do, and you're making a lot of adjustments here in step one, making a lot of adjustments maybe in step three to get your exposure where you all want it to be, you're still going to be so benefited by having the simulations helping you out here. It's automating so much of the busy work. So I think, especially as we continue to roll out some of these new sports, I think on both sides, it's just such a great opportunity. If you're an expert in that sport, this is going to help you out. And if you're just getting started, it's going to put you in a position where you don't have to know all this background knowledge of how to build good lineups, what good lineups look like for the sport. If you were going into baseball, and I know we'll be talking about baseball here in a couple of weeks, but if you're going into your first baseball season ever, you never played baseball DFS, wait till you see these lineups. Like they will automatically, without a single rule getting set, build you the right kinds of stacks, the right kind of construction, leveraged against ownership, without having to do anything. And I just think it's a really strong point to mention here, that Sabersim can be effective whether you know a lot about the sport, whether you're an expert in that DFS sport, or you're just starting off. So I'm super excited. I mean, I'm the guy that's kind of just getting started with MMA. I've dabbled, I've played a little bit here or there, but I don't know these guys. I don't know these names. I haven't watched a ton of these fights. And I'm super excited to get in and start messing around with these Sims here. And I know Title's the MMA expert, and he's just excited about them. So just a lot to look forward to.
I don't want you in the streets, Jordan. You're too smart with too good of a tool to take some of the winning stuff. So, but you'll have a lot. I mean, the thing is, you don't like, some of the people win all the money, and that's pretty much every sport, without watching any of the sports, without knowing any of the players, especially in MMA. If you don't stack, you can build plus EV lineups with just Sabersim. MLB, I'm very excited. I didn't use Sabersim last year with MLB. MLB is so much correlation, obviously, because you get a single, then you hit a double, and your guy hits a 3-run homer. You get the run, you get the RBIs for like, they all tie together. Whereas NBA, you can't have three players, an assist to a 3-pointer, 2 players max are going to benefit from that outcome. So I'm really excited what the MLB Sims talk about. We'll definitely have a lot of content. Opening day, I think, is April 7th. We do these shows with Jordan every Thursday. And Jordan, do you talk about the office hours on the Sabersim site? A lot of people have found those. I see all the time in the RunPure Discord how much that has helped the members with their process. Tell the people how often you go live on that Sabersim channel. Obviously, you can find it, Sabersim, on YouTube. Tell them the time, tell them the days, and where they can find the office hours.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Eastern, every Monday through Friday on our Sabersim channel. It's a live show. You come in, ask questions. It's fun. We get kind of a little bit back and forth going with chat sometimes. Sometimes we'll spend a half hour diving really deep into a particular concept or something like that. So it's a lot of fun. If you have questions, if you can't make it live, and you have questions and just want to shoot an email over to us, support@sabersim.com. The support team always makes sure those questions come across my desk, and we'll chat live. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, very excited. Make sure to check out the Will and Jordan show after this. Anytime someone builds the Sims himself and ships the next day, you're definitely going to want to check that out. And I mean, obviously, MMA has really good prize pools. Obviously, COVID was not good at all, but the one benefit came out. MMA became a very popular sport, and the prize pools are massive every single week. You can use my playbook if you're at RunPureSports. You don't need to use my playbook at RunPureSports if you don't have it, if you don't want. You can rely on Sabersim too. Obviously, every time in step one, the more things you do in step one, if you know you're not going to want certain fighters, if you know you want to lock certain fighters, like in golf, I locked Morikawa right away in step one. You hit that lock button, and then all the lineups you know you're going to like if you already know what you want to do before that. So definitely make sure. I'm very excited to build my lineups tomorrow. Yeah, it's very good. It gives you plus EV lineups. You don't want to get those 160 duplicates and stuff like that. So just make sure not to stack. That's what I always say in MMA. Jordan, I'm excited to see you in the MMA streets, but I'm not excited because I don't want to see you up there shipping. Nah, I'm kidding, but should be a lot of fun for sure. Make sure to check out that Jordan and Will show after this. Jordan goes live every 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern, right? That's the time, Monday through Friday for the office hours.
You got it.
Cool. Can find that on the Sabersim channel. So make sure to check that out. I've not seen any questions in any of these other ones. Make sure to hit that like button. You 11 watching, 11 likes. That's what it always should be on every show. We appreciate it for sure. Hit that big red subscribe button while you're at it too. Right now, Players33 is the promo code too. 33% off the first month, and that includes the Sabersim package too. And this deal will not be going on for much longer. I don't know how many days. AP said it could be pulled at any time. So 33% off Sabersim package is included. Head over to RunPureSports to check it out. But Jordan, I appreciate it. I'm very excited to run these MMA sims tomorrow. Again, check out that Will and Jordan show after this because the guy builds the model. He ships 100K. Who doesn't want to do that? So make sure to check it out. Always appreciate your time, Jordan, and your knowledge. Excited to see you in the streets. But that's going to do it for us. For Jordan, for Simon Behind the Sticks, I'm TITLETOWN. Good luck, everybody.